Good morning. Hope you guys have had a great week, couple weeks off. No, just 1 week off, I guess. Today we are going to continue in our geometry unit that we've been working on in math. And I thought before we dive right in, I would just review a few things that we have talked about. It's been a week, so let's look back at what we talked about. The first thing I wanted to remind you of was what a polygon is. It is a closed shape, meaning it closes like this, not like this. And it's formed by line segments that meet only at their endpoints. And if you remember, this is an endpoint. This is an endpoint where each line meets, endpoint, endpoint. And actually, because there are two lines meeting, we call that a vertex. Okay, that's the first thing. So a polygon is a closed shape formed by line segments. The next thing we talked about, quadrilateral shape with 4 sides and 4 angles. So if a shape has 6 sides, is it a quadrilateral? No. And the way to remember this is the word quad means 4. The next thing I wanted to remind you of, right angle. Remember we said when we go like this, we make our muscle, that forms a right angle. And then if it's less, the angle part, which is from here to here, is less than the angle part from here to here. You see that? And sometimes the angle's greater, and you can see that's a greater distance from here to here. Okay, and the last thing to review is parallelogram. A parallelogram is a quadrilateral with 4 sides, and each pair of opposite sides is parallel and equal in length. So if you look at my figure, you see the top and the bottom are both 6 feet long, and the sides are both 2 inches long. And then you can see that this is parallel to this, and this is parallel to that. That's what we mean by opposite sides. A pair of opposite sides is this and this. They're opposite each other. One is up, one is down. One is on the, my left, my right. Maybe it's different for you. But they're opposite, and they run the same distance apart. That's what makes them parallel. Okay? All right. You should be in your book on page 859, like the lesson plan said. 859 has a lot going on, and that diagram that they give you, I'm not really crazy about. I want you basically to know this, okay? And as I read through these, at the bottom of page 859, you're going to need to fill answers in, but these are going to give you those answers, so stay with me, okay? Basically, what I want you to know is that rectangles and squares share these attributes. And here we go. The first one, opposite sides are the same length. So look at my little drawing here. You see my rectangle and my square, okay? This is the same length as this. This is the same length as this. And this is parallel to this, and this is parallel to this. And a square, they all have the same size length. They all have the same length on the sides, which we know that, right? So that definitely fits. And then this is parallel to this, and this is parallel to that. So opposite sides are the same length. Both pairs of opposite sides are parallel. I already kind of touched on that. If we look at this rectangle, this side is parallel to its opposite side right here. And this side is parallel to its opposite side right here. And on the square, it's the same thing. The line on the top is parallel to the line on the bottom. That's the first pair of opposite sides. And then this line is parallel to this line. That's the second pair of opposite sides that are parallel. And then the last, there are 4 right angles, and I drew them in there. You see, all of these corners make a perfectly square corner. They look like corners of your door frame or your windows. That's what a right angle is. So rectangles and squares have opposite sides that are the same length. Both pairs of opposite sides are parallel, and there are 4 right angles for both. those are the three answers you need at the bottom of page 859. So if you don't have those in yet, pause me and write them in. But we're going to keep going. Okay, the next thing that I do want to remind you is that a rectangle is a parallelogram because it has 4 right angles, right? And a rhombus is a parallelogram with 4 equal sides, okay? So let's continue on to page, I believe you're on 860. Page 860 at the top is example 2. And the example says a parallelogram has opposite sides that are the same length and both pairs of opposite sides are parallel. It also has opposite angles that are the same size. Draw an example of a quadrilateral that is not a parallelogram. So again, I'm on page 860 at the very top under example 2. So we have to draw a quadrilateral that is not a parallelogram, okay? So basically, we can draw something that only has 1 pair of parallel lines, or we can draw something that where the opposite sides are not equal, something like that. But I've gone ahead and done it for you, and what I drew was a trapezoid. Can you see that? A quadrilateral, so you can go ahead and fill this in on your workbook. A quadrilateral that is not a parallelogram is a trapezoid. And it's not a parallelogram because it only has 1 pair of parallel sides. This is parallel to this, but these sides are not parallel because if these lines kept going, eventually they're like this, eventually they would keep going and they would cross each other or run into each other. And we know parallel lines never touch, ever. They are the same distance apart forever and ever and ever and ever. So you can't see that in these lines. You have to imagine it, okay? If they're going like this now and they keep going on and on forever and ever, eventually they will hit and touch. So that means that they're not parallel. Therefore, a trapezoid fits for this answer because it only has 1 pair of parallel sides. And also, all sides are not the same length. So, okay, let's keep going. At the bottom, under guided practice, we have the first question that says, name one attribute that a square has that a rhombus does not. Well, the answer to that would be 4 right angles. Remember, a rhombus is like we took a square and curved it to the side, like this. So if we do that, those right angles become less than right angles. And then, oops, I lost my page. And then what we want to do is number 2. It says, draw an example of a quadrilateral that is not a rhombus. So we would want to draw a rectangle. And we draw a rectangle because it has 4 right angles. A rhombus, like I just said, does not have 4 right angles. So an example of a quadrilateral that is not a rhombus would be a rectangle. And a rectangle is a quadrilateral because it's got 4 sides and 4 right angles. Now it's your turn. You are going to go to page 861, independent practice, and you're going to complete numbers 3, 4, 5, and 6. And that's not a lot, but I feel like we need to kind of go slow because this stuff is hard. You're going to have to keep going back and looking in your book for those definitions to make sure you got it right. But I believe in you and I know you can do it. Good luck.